Food for thought, get your food for thought.
Yeah.
Food for thought.
No way.
Get your food for thought.
Yeah.
Food for thought.
No way.
Get your food for thought. Food for thought.
No way.
Get your food
Get your
for thought.
Hey guys, and welcome to Food for Thought. And I'm back with another topic this week, procrastination. Now, this is one of those topics that we all have gotten a little taste of. We are not robots, okay? So we have all procrastinated from one time or another. Some of us more frequent, some of us, not as bad. So when we think of procrastination, a lot of times we like to pair it with being lazy. And while you have some people who may consciously just put things off for a couple hours or a couple days or maybe even a couple weeks, knowingly, willingly, and just doesn't feel like it, there are a lot of us who go into months and even years. And when that is happening, it's something a lot more deeply rooted than just being lazy. And sometimes we're not even aware of the fact that it's a deeper rooted issue. So, as always, I have my notes. So, one of the reasons why we may procrastinate and we may know or not know is due to being stressed or overwhelmed. So sometimes, you could be stressed out from work. Working for the man, they will put it on you, have you coming in more hours than you really want or need, and it's in your criteria of work. Or sometimes you may be willingly doing this, getting 2 jobs and some people 3 because for whatever reason, this is what's needed to maintain your household. Maybe it's your spouse who's just stressing you out, dealing with whatever issues going on with you guys' relationship. Maybe your kids have been being real life Dennis the Menace, Chucky's, giving you extra drama in your life that is really unnecessary. Maybe you're having some issue with family members or friends, co-workers. It's a lot of areas where stress can come from. And especially when it's not dealt with and it's something that you have to as a reoccurring thing, like your spouse, you're seeing them every day, your kids, the job, like it's a daily routine, and then you're getting built up tension, and sometimes when you're so stressed, the thought of even doing something else is just too much. And it's like, if it's not something that's absolutely necessary for you to do, I'm not even going to entertain doing anything else, because it's just, I just got too much on my plate right now and I'm just so stressed out. And again, has nothing to do with being lazy. You just can be so crazily stressed and overwhelmed at the time, with your everyday situation. And it's stopping you from moving forward with other things that it has to be pushed to the side because you just ain't got the time for it right now. Another reason why we procrastinate is because we can be feeling discouraged. If you're a hoarder, you may have not personally seen a hoarder's home or area, but I'm sure through TV programs and everything, you've been able to witness what a true hoarding situation looks like. And it can get very intense. I mean, first of all, just a regular, just when you let a week or 2 weeks go past and you really didn't get no cleaning done like how you probably would or whatever, sometimes things can get built up and you like, come on, man, I don't even want to, feel like dealing with this or whatever. Like, dang, where I start? So if you can feel that way from letting a couple weeks go past without really getting in there and doing what you got to do, imagine the emotions that go through when these hoarders are finally being forced to deal with their situation. And when I've watched these programs where, it's their children or their family or their friends, and they're really worried about them, and they're like, you can't keep living like this. We have to clear this out. You can get hurt. People have found dead cats, things that have died, under all of this mess. And it may not be the fact that they don't want to do it. It's just going back to the other thing. It's overwhelming. It's stressful. And a lot of times, a lot of these things run into one another, because if you don't deal with this, it causes a whole different emotion. It's like they become extensions of each other. So like I said, you have a situation where you're hoarding. Things have gotten so out of control. Where do you start? When you look at each room, you could barely even see the room, where one begins, where the other one ends. Just thinking about it is going to cause you to feel discouraged, which is going to cause you to feel stressed, which is going to cause you to feel overwhelmed. And you can't even begin. Sometimes you might have a deadline on a project, like we said before. Those things, it overlapping with each other. And if you already have begun to feel overwhelmed and stressed out about something, and so much time has gone on, you can now start to feel discouraged. Like, there's no way that I can get this finished. I barely even started. I'm so backed up. I feel like I'm going to be wasting my time. And even if I do manage to get this finished, it's not going to be thorough. There's going to be plenty of errors, because I don't even have the time to dot my I's and cross my T's. So maybe it's not necessarily that I am, not delivering this project because I just being lazy and I don't want to. It's because other things have been happening in my life. I got backed up, and now when I'm able to tunnel in on this, I feel discouraged. I don't feel like I'm going to even have the time needed to complete this. And now this feelings of discouragement is either going to cause me to put it off even longer or not follow through at all. A lot of times when we have like disabilities, we're born with things that make us handicapped, it can make you feel very discouraged in everyday situations. If you dropped out of school or anything like that, and someone says, well, you said you said that's one of your New Year resolutions. When you gonna go back? You said you're gonna go back. It's been a year, it's been 2 years. And it may not be that, oh, I just don't want to do it or I'm being lazy. I may be feeling discouraged. Sometimes we feel like, even though they have certain programs for people who have a certain handicap, sometimes just even acknowledging it is a lot. Sometimes you're still feeling that anger and resentment of why me? Why was I born this way? And a lot of these things will shape you into that procrastination phase of, I don't even want to deal with it right now. It's not even about being lazy, just the fact that if I go back, I'm forced to deal with something. Because then once you're forced to be put in situations where now I'm thinking about it, it's conscious, it's on my head because I'm sitting in front of this test and I'm having a hard time and I'm struggling and I'm feeling less than, and these are emotions that I don't want to deal with. Even if that means stunting my own growth, I'll deal with that than to go ahead and deal with something that's going to challenge me in a way that is going to make me feel some sort of way. So a lot of times that happens. I was watching a little clip from Steve Harvey, and there was a girl who had a stuttering problem. And I didn't know that Steve Harvey suffered with a stuttering problem back in the day. And apparently she wanted to get some advice from him because she was just like, you came so far from someone who was like a really bad stutterer. And, this whole time she's asking him the question, she's stuttering really bad. And that took so much strength and courage because, number one, you're in a crowd, you're on camera, and, your words are not coming out the way how you want them to. And you're already feeling like all eyes are on you because they are. And she didn't care. She did what she had to do to ask that question. But what if you're a person who always wanted to be a news reporter? You wanted to be in a debate team, things that require you to talk And people are like, well, I thought you said you wanted to do that. Well, why are you putting it off? You said you were going to go to school for that. Because why? I feel discouraged. I don't feel that that job is going to fit. No, like, what do? They have like some type of speech classes or things like that to help you try to figure out how to calm yourself or whatever the case is. And that was the question she was asking Steve, like, how did you overcome this? So when people are not willing to have all those eyes on them to get the answer that they need, and they rather just quietly deal with it, it will procrastinate a lot of your goals, because you are not willing to challenge yourself. Whenever you're uncomfortable, you're growing. And a lot of times people will choose, like I said, to stunt their growth for the comfortability. If you're someone who's overweight, you may have put yourself in situations where you have been discouraged. Rather, you've been talking to someone online dating. And if you're the type of overweight person who is not comfortable with yourself, and maybe you've only put a face pic up, because a lot of times when you're overweight, you will do that, where you put a face pic up, and maybe it's getting a little serious now. Maybe you guys been talking for 3 or 4 months, and they've been putting that pressure as far as when we're going to meet up. And you've been coming up with all kinds of excuses, procrastinating this meeting, procrastinating what's inevitable, because eventually they're going to want to meet up with you. So you basically have to figure out, okay, if I'm not going to take this seriously and lose this weight, because obviously you have a problem with it, so that's the only thing you can do, is either lose the weight so that you can feel comfortable, or accept yourself in that phase that you're at. And if he's feeling you like he says, or she's feeling you like she says, then she has to accept it too. Otherwise, you're just procrastinating, and now you're missing out on actual physical time that you could be having with this person because of the self-confidence that you're lacking at this particular moment. Maybe you've been supposed to be getting married, and like you want to look a certain way in your dress. And so now you've been procrastinating the wedding because you don't look how you want to look. Like in certain areas we do this. Maybe you wanted to go on American Idol or The Voice and audition, but you know that a lot of times when it comes to these shows, they want a whole package thing. So now you're putting off your career because you could have went on there and won and be a multi-millionaire singer right now. And they've had people who won who were overweight and stuff like that, but we know the status quo. These people be looking for a certain type of look. Maybe you feel discouraged and you're like, I'm not going to go on there because I don't quite have that look right now. And so you've been putting that off, and people are like, Dad, when you want to go? You sing so good, and you just be like, oh yeah, I'm going to go, because you don't really want to get into that, and that's another reason that you've been procrastinating in that area. Maybe you wanted to be a cheerleader, be on a drill team, all these type of things, and you've never auditioned because of your weight, and you feel discouraged that one look, they're going to say, okay, she don't meet the qualifications because she's overweight, and you never know, until you go out and do it. But you've been procrastinating. You're in school, and your friend is telling you, come on, let's go do the tryouts together, and you're like, oh yeah, you go, I'll go next week, or this and the third, coming up with all these excuses, and deep inside why you're really procrastinating on the issue. Now, going back to what we addressed last week with childhood trauma, maybe people have been pressuring you about you getting older. When are you going to start having kids? Maybe you've not been feeling like quite equipped that you can deal, like that you'll be able to be a good parent. Maybe you feel like unsure. Now, it's one thing to had waited till you were in your 30s and that was intentional, and you had a business plan and you wanted to have this set up before you start having kids. That's something totally different. I'm talking about someone who is not on purpose. It's just you're unsure. You just feel like because you're not sure, you've been putting it off because, on one hand, you feel like, well, I think I'll be able to do a better job. I'll be able to do a good job. But then on the other hand, you're not really that sure. You don't, and you're so scared of just even thinking that you might fail that you're not even giving yourself a chance to even explore the option and even see if that's going to happen or not happen. Maybe you're discouraged in moving forward in your relationship because maybe your partner has not been loyal, been being unfaithful, too many red flags been going on. Maybe people are asking you, like family, friends are like, well, what's going on? Are you guys still getting married? Or is this, is this still like a go? And, all the time we don't feel comfortable giving all the details of our relationship. So, maybe you're coming up with all these different other reasons. And when reality, you are putting it off and procrastinating the wedding because you're feeling quite discouraged that they're going to actually even change, and so if that's the case, you have to accept that reality and do the proper steps that are needed to ensure that you're not going to do something just because you're being pressured and it's not something you really want to do. So this is why it's important to figure out, when you're procrastinating on certain things, why are we really procrastinating on it? Not just use that word and that be the answer. Oh yeah, well, I've just been procrastinating lately, and use that as the cover word, because what's more important is the why. Because a lot of times we don't ask why. We just say, well, what's going on with X, Y, Z? Oh, I've been procrastinating and I'll get around to it. And then that answer is good enough for us, for the person who asks. And it's always usually deeper rooted. Another reason is when you have a lot of pride. When you have a lot of pride, it can cause you to procrastinate on things that you didn't even actually have to procrastinate on. So it may be a situation when you're at school, at work, maybe you need help on something, and when you're a prideful person, you don't want to ask for help. You want to look like you know everything, gotta be perfect, this, that, and the third, you don't want to come off inferior. So when you have these type of qualities about yourself, it's very difficult, in a lot of situations. And these people, your coworkers or your classmates, could have helped you, guide you along in that project that you were running late on, but because you felt too better then, you didn't want to ask for the help. And now deadlines are not being met, and because you had so much pride, or maybe you could have asked for a loan because your car is about to be repossessed. And a lot of times we don't like to ask for help, especially financially, because we're always worried about that person throwing it in our face, this, that, and the third. But sometimes we can't think about that, because if you really need the help and someone's capable of giving you the help, what's really more important here? Someone throwing this in your face, or the car that's going to actually be able to get you to your job from A to B every day and make sure that your bills are paid so that you can have a roof over your head, or make your life a little more convenient, going grocery shopping, this, and the third. You want to keep your car, right? So whether it's going through people or even a place for a loan, you have to sometimes put that pride to the side, because now you spend all these days just in the what can I do? How can I figure this out method, as opposed to at least let me just try and see, and so because you decided to let your pride take the first seat, negative outcomes came. Your car did get repossessed, because why? You procrastinated and decided that, hey, I can't figure out, I'd rather sit down and let days go past coming up. And if you see that you're not coming up with something, then hey, let's move on to something that may be beneficial by just doing something as simple as calling and asking for help. Because right now I'm struggling trying to figure out what I can actually do on my own. And until I figure out, at least let me try these options. A lot of times we have fear. We procrastinate with fear. Maybe it's fear of rejection. Your friend is like, hey, you've been crushing on that girl, or you've been crushing on that guy. I thought you said you was going to say something. Yeah, I'm going to get to it, and you've been procrastinating. And now they're in a relationship, and that could have been supposed to be your wife, your husband, and because of that fear of rejection, we didn't approach. We procrastinated, and guess what? That option is not going to be available forever. Sometimes there is a limit on the option. Sometimes we procrastinate with our health, because why? We think the absolute worst, and if we know we feel a little bit different, and we're like, dang, something's going on, I haven't really been feeling okay, and and they're like, oh, well, when you gonna go make an appointment? Oh yeah, I'm making an appointment, but you never get around to it. Weeks going past, maybe even months, and for some people, last time they've been to the doctors could have been years, because a lot of times you go there and then you're like, get bad news, and maybe sometimes it's news you already knew, because you didn't feel right, and because you knew it, you didn't want to hear it, because for some reason when you hear it, it's confirmed. So it's like, as long as I don't hear it, then it's a question mark. So that makes you feel a little bit better, because it's not 100% for sure. I don't have to deal with it. You don't want to deal with what the possibilities are, So sometimes fear can make you put stuff off. A lot of times when you suffer with social anxiety, the smallest things can become a very big thing out of fear. If you're socially awkward and everything like that, you will procrastinate with a lot of different things. Maybe your job have different events after work, and they're like, we're gonna have a Christmas party, this, that, and the third, and maybe a couple coworkers you're friends with always like, why don't you never come to me? Like, oh yeah, something came up, you're always making excuses, and I'll be at the next one, this, that, and the third, the next one come up, you don't come, you're just putting them off, because you're not really like that. So, especially if you're like an introverted type person, that's not something that you do. It's not something that you care for. Even if it's business stuff, like something as simple as going and handling business, and you have to deal with these people, like I said, if you have social anxiety, that can be something that you putting business off, and you don't want to do it too much, because if it's something really important, like your lights are going to get cut off if you don't deal with this and handle this, you have to do it. Something as simple as phone calls. For a regular person, it might be like, oh, it's just a phone call, handle it. But when you're like, have social anxiety and stuff, like, you don't even want to talk on the phone to a business person or this, that, and the third. It's like, it can get really deep. And you see that number come up, and if it's not somebody who you're like, oh, I'm not picking up. Leave a message, I'll check it, I'll see what it's about, and then I'll call back. Maybe, it may even be a confrontation, whether it's confrontation within your household, family, friends. If you're a person who's not really a confrontational type person, you're going to put it off. I'm not going to deal with that situation, because it's not your cup of tea. You don't really like to deal with that. So it never really get addressed, or it takes longer than it should have to get addressed, because of just that whole feeling that you get whenever it comes to confrontation, and unfortunately, sometimes it can even be a fear out of racial acceptance. Is it something that you maybe you're in a relationship and you still haven't let your spouse meet your family, and they've been pressuring you lately and saying, hey, when I'm going to meet your, are we going to their house this Thanksgiving or whatever? And you're like, well, they're constantly coming up with excuses and they're putting it off. And maybe there's a deeper issue. Maybe their family is not as open as they are with dealing with other races, and they don't know how to tell you that, or they don't want to tell you that, and so they've just been making up excuses. So you have to really dig deep sometimes when people are procrastinating. Sometimes there are a lot of deeper rooted issues, so you really just have to take that time and figure out Why have I been procrastinating? Especially if it's a specific area and you've been procrastinating for a long time. What is it? What's going on? What am I not dealing with here? Is there an underlying issue? And once you figure out the true rooted reason why you are procrastinating, sit down, evaluate it so that you can address it appropriately.